Hello everyone and welcome back to The Lost Planeswalker. You're here with me, Jesse, The Lost Planeswalker, and today I'm going to show you my Hexproof commander deck. And this one I call Narset Treble. We have a older commander from Khans of Tarkir, Narset the Enlightened Master. Narset the Enlightened Master is 3 blue, red, white, legendary creature human monk with first strike and hexproof. When Narset the Enlightened Master attacks, exile the top 4 cards of your library. Until the end of your turn, you may cast non-creature cards exiled with Narset this turn without paying their mana cost. Right off the bat, you can see this is not going to be a creature-heavy deck. We're really focused in on getting those non-creature cards to help us advance our board and win the game. So the keywords that are on their first strike and hexproof are really helpful, but what we really need is unblockable, because this means we're going to be able to swing in and attack every turn, and our opponents aren't going to be able to do anything to our creature because it has hexproof. So let's look at some of those cards that can give Narset unblockable. So starting off with the unblockable cards, we have Ether Tunnel, Aquarius Form, and Manifold Key. Right off the bat, you can see they just give it unblockable. That's what this whole category is about. Next is Protective Bubble, Prowler's Helm, and Security Bypass. Now, when I was doing some research, I really liked Prowler's Helm and Security Bypass because Prowler's Helm basically gives it unblockable except for walls, but nobody plays walls nowadays, so it's really good. And also Security Bypass can let you draw a card through Connive, which can buff your creature in the process, so I really like this card. Skrelv, Defector Might, Steel of the Godhead, and Suspicious Bookcase are our next 3 cards. Skrelv is new from Phyrexia All Will Be One. It's a great card. This is a card I personally want to build a deck around, but that ability just makes it perfect. And Steel of the Godhead is one of the cards I have in my modern deck. I use a similar theme with Hexproof, and this basically gives my blue and white creatures +1/+1 lifelink and unblockable, so I really like it. And finally, we have Sword Coast Sailor, Tricks of the Trade, and Whisper Silk Club. Now let's look into our second category, which I don't think many people would build the deck this way, but I really liked it. Because Narset casts anything except non-creatures, equipment is free game. So I have what I call the Sword ofs. It's basically every Sword of. So starting off, we got Sword of Body and Mind, Sword of Feast and Famine, Sword of Fire and Ice, Sword of Forge and Frontier, Sword of Hearth and Home, Sword of Light and Shadow, Sword of Once and Future, which is our new and final sword from March of the Machine, Sword of Sinew and Steel, Sword of the Animist, Sword of Truth and Justice, and Sword of War and Peace. All of these swords are going to help protect our creature. It already has hexproof, so nobody can really deal with anything, but it's basically going to let us swing into any number of opponents, you know? Equipping 1 or 2 of these swords basically protects it from anything that's on the board. So we're going to gain a lot of benefit from all those combat damage triggers, plus Narset's own combat damage trigger, so this is just fantastic. And with Narset being able to cast spells from the top of our library, we want to be able to manipulate the top of that library. So this next set is all about ordering our cards correctly. Starting off, we got Brainstorm, Long-Term Plans, and Mystical Tutor. Any of these cards are going to let us put what we want on top of our library, especially Long-Term Plans and Mystical Tutor. We can basically find whatever we want and put it right on top of our deck. We got Ponder and Brainstorm and Scroll Rack, which are going to also help us. Scroll Rack being super huge, so that if we end up drawing into a lot of our spells, well, we can just put them right on top and then swing into with Narset and cast them. And lastly, Sensei's Divining Top, one of my favorite all-time cards. It's super fun to play with, and you can constantly manipulate the top of your library, or at least see what's on top, and maybe you want to draw some cards, maybe you want to shuffle, figure out how to do that, and put whatever you need right on top. And I think the best way to win with this deck is, the way I've set it up anyways, is taking extra turn. We have all of that equipment, so you're going to be able to deal combat damage with Narset and just win. So I have a whole category just dedicated to extra turns. Starting off, we have All Runs Empany, Beacon of Tomorrows, and Expropriate. All of these are pretty expensive spells, so we don't want to be hard casting these. Next is Karn's Temporal Sundering, Nexus of Fate, Impart the Water Veil. Another 3 are Temporal Manipulation, Temporal Mastery, and Temporal Trespass. And finally, we have Stretch Time, Time Warp, and Walk the Eon. All of these extra turn spells are basically just going to guarantee with Narset that we just win. If we combo this with some other cards you'll see later, we basically have infinite extra turns, and either through drawing out our library or swinging in with Narset for the kill, we're going to win. But if we need to draw some cards, we do have some card draw. First off, we have Enter the Infinite, Esper Sentinel, and Jessica's Will. These are 3 amazing cards, 1 in each color, that we're going to be able to take advantage of to draw some cards from our library. Enter the Infinite in particular is going to let us draw our whole library, so we can play cards to help us win right on the spot. And the next two are Rhystic Study and Whirlwind of Thought. Rhystic Study is just a great card overall. We're going to be able to draw a lot of cards if our opponents don't want to pay. And whenever we cast a non-creature spell, which we will do a lot of, just draw a card. Seems pretty good. Next, I want to look at some of the win con cards, as I call them, in the deck to basically just end the game. Starting off, we have Omniscience, One with the Multiverse, and Passionate Archaeologist. Passionate Archaeologist is one of the cards when I was looking, I was blown away on how good this was going to be. With the amount of expensive spells we have in this deck, and them all being exiled and cast for free with Narset, we're just going to be dealing massive damage to target opponents every time we cast those. There's over 17 spells that cost more than 5 mana, and at least one 12-drop spell. Dealing 12 damage to the dome, that's going to be huge. Omniscience and One with the Multiverse is also going to let us play spells for free, which means if we draw into those extra turn spells, or with One with the Multiverse, we can look at the top and cast it right there, we're going to be set. And the other two win con cards I have is Thassa's Oracle and Thousand Year Storm. Thassa's Oracle is obviously a great win con. It's a little salty, so I might not play it, but if you want to win that way, it's available. But Thousand Year Storm, I think, is going to be excellent. If you're able to play this with Narset and then just start casting those extra turn spells, well, there's going to be a storm, and you're going to be taking more than one extra turn. And before I talk about the lands, I just want to talk about the good stuff that I also added in this deck. It didn't really fit into any of those other categories, but I thought it would be worth mentioning. Starting off, we have An Offer You Can't Refuse, really great counterspell. That's not really something I played super heavy to in this deck, so please, if you feel that they need it, go ahead. But I felt with Narset's ability, you were just going to be exiling those counterspells without being to play them, so it really wasn't that great. Arcane Signet and Azorius Signet, obviously great cards. Donovan's Veto, a counterspell that can't be countered. I like that. Path to Exile, always good, whether it's Narset or casting it from your hand. Next, we have Smothering Tide, making us treasure whenever an opponent draws a card. Soul Ring, very good card. Stronic Resonator is one of the absolutely best cards, I think, for this deck, because you're going to be able to copy a triggered ability you control. Basically, copying Narset's ability, meaning you're going to exile 8 cards for 2 mana and be able to play them all for free. If you can get this out, your opponents are going to get rid of it right away. Next, we have Swords Plowshares, one of White's best removal spells. There's Third Path Iconoclast. Whenever you cast a non-creature spell, in particular, create a 1/1 colorless soldier artifact creature token. So, doesn't matter if it's one of your artifacts or one of your spells, you're going to get a soldier. Wall of Denial. For just 3 mana, a defender with flying and shroud for a 0/8. That's going to protect you from whatever's on the board. And lastly, Young Pyromancer, or Young Peasy. We're going to be casting so many instant sorceries and making those elemental tokens that, paired with Third Path Iconoclast, you're going to have a big board of tokens at least. And I'm going to briefly go through the lands. The land base I left real simple. Obviously, we're pretty heavily skewed blue, so I have an Unhallowed Fountain, 20 islands, 6 mountains, 6 plains, a Sacred Foundry, and a Steam Vents. You can definitely go through and find all of those other tapped blue, white, blue, red, red, white, white, blue lands to, fill this out and make it better, but I just put the basics in. So yeah, that's my idea for this Narset Enlightened Master deck. I think it's neat. I didn't see too much of the swords, when I was looking at similar decks when I was trying to build this, thinking, what's a great card I can't think of, but I think that basically making this equipment deck is a really neat idea. I mean, you could go full equipment if you can take out those extra turn spells, because some of them are quite pricey, and just throw in more equipment. Embercleave is a great one. Colossal Hammer is another great one. Instantly make your commander a 13/12. It does have a high equip cost, which kind of sucks, but if you slip in Sigarda's Aid, well, that doesn't matter. You basically cast those and equip them right to it. So yeah, I went about 50-50 with this deck, but I think there's a lot of really fun ways, and this is actually a really cool deck, so I'm glad. It was really fun to make. If you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate if you would subscribe to my channel. I try to do one of these deck techs about once a week, just a little fun for me and give everybody something interesting to watch. And if you would leave a comment down below of a card I missed, maybe there's something that you like to play in this deck, you have it of your own, or maybe you're like, oh, you know what, this would actually be a really cool card. I'd love to see it in the comments, and please hit that like button. It would really help me out. And that's it. So, as always, I'll see you later, Planeswalkers.